Have you ever wondered why an all-powerful God allows Satan to exist? If God could cast Satan out of heaven, why not eliminate him completely? Let's look deep into one of the most intriguing questions in Christian theology, and the answer might surprise you. Let's start by understanding who Satan was before his fall. Originally named Lucifer, meaning bringer of light, Satan held the highest position among angels. Ezekiel 28 describes him as the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. He wasn't just another angel, he was God's masterpiece, created to bring glory and praise to the Almighty. But something went terribly wrong. Like many who achieve great success, Lucifer's excellence became his downfall. His beauty and wisdom, gifts from God, transformed into sources of pride. This pride grew into dangerous ambition. Instead of being content with his role serving God, Lucifer desired to be served and worshipped. He wanted to be equal to, or even superior to, God himself. This ambition led to an unprecedented event, a rebellion in heaven. Revelation 12:7-8 describes this cosmic battle. War broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, but he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. Satan, depicted as a massive dragon, gathered an army of angels who shared his rebellious spirit. Yet despite their numbers, they couldn't overcome God's authority. Now here's where many people get confused. If God is all-powerful, why didn't he simply eliminate Satan and his followers? Why allow them to continue existing and causing trouble? The answer lies in three fundamental aspects of God's nature and his divine plan. First, let's consider the nature of spiritual beings. According to John 4:24, God is spirit, and Satan, being a spiritual being, shares this fundamental characteristic of immortality. Spiritual beings cannot die in the conventional sense. This doesn't mean God lacks the power to destroy them, rather. It reflects the unique nature of spiritual existence. 2 Peter 2:4 tells us that God has prepared chains of darkness for the fallen angels, showing his ability to contain and punish spiritual beings without necessarily eliminating their existence. The second reason, and perhaps the most profound, involves free will and genuine love. Think about it. If someone holds a gun to your head and demands your love, would that love be real? Of course not. True love can only exist where there's genuine choice. God desires authentic love and worship from his creation, not forced devotion. By allowing beings to choose whether to follow or reject him, even when that being is Satan himself, God demonstrates his commitment to authentic relationships. If God immediately destroyed everyone who chose to reject him, would we really have free will? The ability to choose against God must be real for our choice to follow him to have any meaning. This brings us to something remarkable about God's character, his patience and mercy. Even when faced with direct rebellion, God's response wasn't immediate destruction, but rather banishment. This shows us that God's power isn't limited by Satan's existence. Every action Satan takes ultimately serves God's greater purpose, even when Satan himself doesn't realize it. The third reason involves Satan's role in God's redemption plan. Here's something fascinating. Satan's continued existence actually plays a part in God's master plan for humanity. Consider Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. Satan's presence provided the opportunity for Jesus to demonstrate his perfect obedience where Adam had failed. Without a tempter, how would humanity witness Christ's complete victory over sin? Even in the betrayal of Jesus by Judas, we see Satan unknowingly fulfilling God's plan. Luke's gospel tells us that Satan entered Judas, leading him to betray Jesus. This betrayal, though evil in intent, led to the crucifixion, the very event that would secure humanity's salvation. As Joseph said to his brothers in Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." This reveals something profound about God's sovereignty. He can use even the actions of his enemies to accomplish his purposes. Satan's rebellion, rather than derailing God's plan, becomes an instrument through which God demonstrates his power, wisdom, and love. But don't misunderstand, God's patience with Satan isn't endless, nor does it mean Satan escapes justice. Revelation describes Satan's final destiny, the lake of fire. God's justice isn't absent, it's patient. Every moment Satan continues to exist is another opportunity for humans to choose God's side, to demonstrate true faith in the face of opposition, and to participate in God's ultimate victory over evil. Let's also consider the educational aspect of this situation. Satan's rebellion and its consequences serve as an eternal object lesson about the results of pride and rebellion against God. His story demonstrates that no creature, no matter how beautiful or wise, can successfully oppose the Creator. As Proverbs 16:18 warns, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. The ongoing existence of Satan also provides context for spiritual warfare and the development of faith. When believers resist temptation and choose faithfulness to God despite opposition, they participate in a cosmic drama that glorifies God's wisdom and power. Each victory over temptation, each choice to trust God despite circumstances, becomes a testimony to God's triumph over evil. Moreover, Satan's continued existence highlights the contrast between good and evil, helping us understand the nature of both. Just as we appreciate light more fully when we've experienced darkness, God's goodness shines more brightly against the backdrop of evil's reality. This contrast isn't just theoretical, it's lived out in the daily choices of every human being. Throughout history, we see God repeatedly using adverse circumstances to accomplish His purposes. The persecution of the early church led to the spread of the gospel. The martyrdom of believers inspired countless others to faith. Even today, challenges and opposition often result in stronger faith and more effective ministry. This pattern suggests that God's tolerance of evil serves His broader purposes in ways we might not fully comprehend. Understanding why God allows Satan to continue existing helps us trust His wisdom in other areas of life. When we face opposition or struggle to understand why God allows certain situations, we can remember that His patience and timing serve purposes beyond our immediate understanding. Just as God works all things together for good in the grand cosmic narrative, He works in our individual lives as well. The existence of Satan and evil also highlights the importance of human free will in God's plan. Every person faces the same fundamental choice that Satan faced, whether to submit to God's authority or rebel against it. Our choices, unlike Satan's, are not yet final. Each day presents new opportunities to choose God's way over our own desires. Finally, let's consider what this reveals about God's character. His decision not to immediately destroy Satan shows us a God who is not only powerful but also patient, wise, and strategic. He demonstrates that true power lies not in immediate destruction of opposition, but in the ability to work all things, even rebellion and evil, into a plan that ultimately brings greater glory and good. Now let's explore some deeper questions that often come up when studying this topic. You may be wondering about the timing of Satan's final judgment. When exactly will Satan face his ultimate destiny in the lake of fire? The book of Revelation gives us a fascinating timeline. Satan's final defeat happens in stages. First, during the tribulation period, he'll be cast down to earth with no more access to heaven. Then, at Christ's return, he'll be bound for 1,000 years in what Scripture calls the bottomless pit. Finally, after one last rebellion following his release, he'll face eternal judgment in the lake of fire. This staged defeat reveals something profound about God's character. He doesn't just want to eliminate evil, he wants to demonstrate its complete futility. Think about it. Even after being bound for 1,000 years, Satan's nature doesn't change. This proves that his judgment is entirely just, and that God's patience wasn't due to any possibility of redemption. What exactly is the difference between fallen angels and demons? While many use these terms interchangeably, there are some interesting distinctions in biblical accounts. Fallen angels are those who joined Satan's rebellion in heaven, while some scholars suggest that demons might be different spiritual beings entirely. Jude 1:6 specifically mentions angels who abandoned their proper dwelling, while demons are often described as disembodied spirits seeking to possess physical bodies. Satan's continued existence actually validates our faith in remarkable ways. How so? Because despite all his efforts throughout history, he hasn't been able to thwart God's plans. Every attack, every scheme, every attempt to destroy God's people has ultimately failed. This track record serves as powerful evidence of God's sovereignty and the reliability of his promises. Think about Job's story, for instance. Satan challenged God's assertion about Job's faithfulness, claiming Job only served God because of blessings. God allowed Satan to test Job, not because God needed to prove anything to Satan, but to demonstrate Job's genuine faith and God's faithfulness through trials. This ancient story perfectly illustrates how God uses Satan's very existence to showcase his glory and the authenticity of true faith. Understanding why God allows Satan to exist helps us face our own spiritual battles with greater confidence. When we experience temptation or spiritual warfare, we can remember that God isn't absent or powerless. He's allowing these challenges for purposes that serve our ultimate good and his glory. Remember the words of James 1:12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Every trial we face, every temptation we overcome, becomes an opportunity to demonstrate genuine faith and grow stronger in our relationship with God. So what's our response to all this? First, we can thank God for his perfect wisdom in dealing with Satan and evil. Second, we can trust that if God's handling of Satan serves a greater purpose, then he's also working purposefully in our personal struggles. Finally, we can look forward with confidence to the day when God's perfect plan will be fully revealed and Satan's defeat will be complete. Now that you understand these deeper aspects of why God allows Satan to continue existing, how does it change your perspective on spiritual warfare and God's work in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insightful biblical content. Until then, stay blessed and keep seeking God's truth.